All right, well, welcome to AFM's virtual training. I'm so happy that everyone could come today. I'm super excited for our training. We have Howard back today to teach us another lesson. And so these are our weekly trainings. We record them and we post them on YouTube free of charge. So I definitely invite you all to share those videos and the registration link to join future trainings with your colleagues and just any friends that may be curious about the fire service. We also offer certificates, and the certificates are for those who complete 70%, which is 45 minutes or more of these virtual trainings. Sadly, YouTube videos and later viewings do not count towards that 70% of the time. But if you all change your Zoom names to the name that you want on your certificate, then I will be able to have the correct names on your certificates. If you don't know how to do that, please just message me in the chat and I can explain how to do that. I just want everyone to have the correct names that you guys want on your certificates. But after the training, we are going to be having tea time with Jose. So I also invite you all to stay for that and ask as many questions as you want, or you can also ask questions during and throughout the training. Just unmute yourselves, and I'm sure Howard won't mind the interruptions of questions. I'm sure he's gonna love that. But I'm gonna pass it off to Jose right now to just share a little bit of encouragement with you guys.
Thank you so much, Leah. Welcome so much, Mr. Howard. We're truly grateful to always have you here. And everybody, welcome. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you being here. We don't take that for granted, honestly. So today's encouragement was more on the WhatsApp chat, the group chat that we're on. And one of the members shared a video of a vehicle. It's really not an extrication situation. This was a vehicle on fire, and the petrol, rather the gasoline, was out of control, and there was fire. And all of a sudden, these two firefighters were all busy trying to put out the fire. But suddenly, the flames, it just blew out. I think the gas cylinder, the petrol in the container of the car just blew up, and it came over, engulfed the both firefighters in the flames. And it kept me thinking, what if sometimes we just wake up and we are all ready to go to save the people and just serve the community, and all of a sudden things go haywire, things go haywire. And in this particular case, the fire just, things went haywire on the fire scene or on the situation. So I just kept on imagining, when you get back to the firehouse, what do you think about? What do you think? What do you say? And it kept me saying, and this is the encouragement bit, that yes, you might have trained all you've got. You might have trained everything to the book, like you wore all your PPEs, everything was, you followed everything, but things just didn't work out, And my point here is, don't feel discouraged. Don't feel like there's something you missed, And this is a point whereby you sit on the fire table and with the whole fire crew, and you break down the fire situation. What did we do right? What did we not do? It's more like a debrief, And during that debrief, it's not a point of name calling and blame game and things like that. What could we have done better? Thank God those firefighters were well, and they were not harmed, and and everything was in control. So going forward, even as you go in the fire scene, yes, you have trained well, but remember to go back to the fire table for the debrief, so that you can say, or you can see what best or what you can improve in the next fire scene. Because if you do not debrief, what is going to either repeat itself, or you're going to get scared. You're going to see a fire situation in a car, a vehicle extrication, or the whole car is on fire, and you go like, no, I will not respond to that call. So learn to debrief. And I must say, during your debrief, please, it's not a time for name calling, but a time to encourage and a time to see what we could have done better. Thank you very much for listening. And I pass this back to Leah for the next situation.
Thank you, Jose. I always appreciate just listening to your words of encouragement, and I learned so much from you, especially with just how much importance you put on reflection. That is just so important, and I think it really creates a united team, which is so important in fire service. But I want to introduce and welcome to the Zoom Howard Cohen. He is going to be teaching about extrication without power tools. And so I welcome you, Howard. I'm going to spotlight you and feel free to take it over.
Hi, everybody. Let me just get my screen all set up for you. So I see some familiar names and some familiar faces, mostly names that a lot of you just mostly have your names up. That's cool. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this presentation for you. It's been a trip back in history for me. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that once as we get forward, continue on. As always, I want to just thank everyone. I can't name all the different firefighters that I've learned from and upon whose shoulders I stand as I teach you, as I present this information for you. And I can't thank Nancy and Dave and the folks at AFM. I can't enough for creating this opportunity for all of you, but also for me to be engaged internationally and with teaching something that's become a passion for me. And I appreciate all of you sticking around after your day at work or at the beginning of your work day, whichever is coming. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to safely respond to a motor vehicle accident and extricate patients without power tools. One of the things that I learned when I was in Kenya last fall is that a lot of the tools and skill and a lot of the tools that we take for granted here in North America, you just don't have. They haven't there. And if you have some, you have some of them, but not everybody has them, and they're not necessarily readily available. Now, some of you may have an old cutter or an old Jaws of Life, but it may not be working. And we discovered that since it's hard to get parts, so you can't not do your job. You just have to do it with different tools. And so today we're going to look at different ways to respond to motor vehicle accidents without power tools. And by the way, even if you have the power tools available to you, they might not be there when you are. They might be coming on another truck from a distance away. There might be more than one accident that you're dealing with at the same time. And so you just don't have tools to go everywhere, and you can't wait. So you've got to do something. So what was particularly fun for me in doing this is that I was interviewing firefighters who've been around before the advent, before the hydraulic tools, the Jaws of Life, for example, came on board and became standard. And I said, what did you guys do? What tools did you use when you didn't have these power tools that we take for granted? And it was fun hearing people. It was fun learning some of the things that they did. It was also fun doing the research just to see some of the crazy techniques that firefighters tried using in the past. So I'm excited to move into this, and here we go. By the way, I'm just curious, and you could just do a show of hands or say something in the chat, or hit the econ button. How many of you have the power tools on your apparatus, spreaders, cutters, rams, or even saws. I see that Richard's got his hand up. He's got them. Can't sell from other people. So a couple raised hands. That's good. So we'll, but we're not going to talk about those for the most part today. All right, moving on. Look, every MVA, motor vehicle accident, is different. What could be different is the type of vehicle that's involved, the number of vehicles, the location of the incident, the time of day, what resources are available. That includes mechanical resources and human resources. Regardless of the fact that there's so many different situations, it's good to have a standard or proven effective response, or what we call it SOGs or SOPs, standard operating guidelines or standard operating procedures. I will share with you an example of a SOP SOG that I was involved with developing for a fire department. It's pretty standard. You're welcome to use it as a basis for your own department if you don't already have one. And if so, it will be available. I'll make sure that it's available after this, and we'll talk a little bit about it also further on. Before I get into the details, I want to emphasize several points. You need to know your capabilities. You need to know your equipment. You need to know your crew. You need to know your options, and you need to know your resources, and you need a communication plan. All of these things are critical, no matter what you're doing in the fire service. And the way that you get to this place of knowing all these things is by training, and more training. So let's move on. When you respond to an MVA, or when we respond to an MVA, and I don't know what your standard operating procedures are in your fire brigades, but ours follows basically these 6 steps, and I'll break them down as we go on. You're going to secure the vehicle, or secure the scene, which means make it safe for you and your crew. Then you're going to approach the vehicle. You're going to stabilize the vehicle. You're going to attempt access through the driver's side, and you're going to look to disconnect the battery. You're going to access the patient. Those are the 6 primary overarching steps in an approach to a motor vehicle accident where there's the need to extricate, or you have patients involved. We'll go over all these things in more detail as we go through this. What I want to do now is I want to break you up, send you into the breakout groups. I don't know how many people we've got here in the on the session, but Leah, if you could break them up into, it looks like maybe 4 breakout groups for 5 minutes in the breakout group. And this is what you're going to do. Hopefully this picture will stay on your screen. You're the first crew to arrive in this 2-car MVA. The driver of the car with the green arrow pointing to it crawled out of the passenger side and is sitting on the curb holding his head. The driver on the car with the red arrow pointing towards it is still behind the wheel. However, the impact from the accident has jammed tight the driver's side door. So what I want you to do in your breakout group is figure out what the steps are you would go through to extricate the driver from the car with a red arrow pointing to it. And have somebody write down the steps that you go through. So we're gonna do just 5 minutes is all we're going to spend on this, and we'll see what you guys come up with. So Leah, if you could send them into the breakout group, that'd be great. And as new people come in, just put them in.
I think we are back now.
Okay, so rather than have each group kind of report on what steps they went through, I'm curious to hear if the people in each group, if you're all from different fire brigades and maybe even different countries, how consistent was your recommendations for your actions? How similar were your approaches to responding? And did you have disagreements over how to respond? So any one of those questions, if anyone wants to offer a response to, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And just go ahead and unmute. And don't be shy.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Mike here.
Yes.
Bet you can hear me. All right. I'm coming from group 3, and we've discussed a little bit, but it's good to just get to the point to where we reached. And from the picture we've got here, I'm actually a Kenyan, to be precise.
Okay.
Now we've got this this particular collision, and we can be able to see this. What we can see, first of all, remember we are talking about assessment of danger. That is the first approach. The danger we can be able to see is now the danger to us, the firefighters, and also the danger to the public and also the casualty. The most obvious one we can be able to see is the spillage. This spillage is actually very, very visual. And number 2, we can be able to see the vehicle lights are still on. That shows that the vehicle is still on power, and the batteries are still on, which is also a danger to us. And there's likeliness of an ignition. So that particular thing should be able to tell us that our approach must be very, very careful. Now, the first things first, how do we manage the spill? That is our first initial thing we need to do. What do we have in our trucks to be able to either cover or, because that's the only, we cannot take time to try and absorb this. But the only thing I think we can do for now expeditiously is try as much as possible to cover this, either with a dry powder, if we have got some fire extinguisher. One thing that we must always be able to do is run a hose reel line just around it to ensure that there is any spark that could be able to emanate to ignite the fuel. Once that is done, cover the fuel either by dry powder or foam. Once that is done, go ahead and try and turn off the engines.
Good.
That is from the ignition. And remember, the in charge will always go and try and communicate to the persons involved, the victims. Try and talk. Always talk. Reassure the casualties in the vehicle. Tell them of everything you're going to do, so that they will not be able to be moving their necks. Remember, their spine is of vital importance.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in. What you're describing, great stuff. Everything you're right. You're spot on with. How are you going to get the person out of the car with the red arrow pointing to it? Let's see if people have any suggestions for that, because the door is jammed.
All right. That's good. That's a good point to note. Now, our in charge is going to stand right before the spill and ensure that the spill is discovered. Number 2, we are not going to go through the same door, because remember, number 1, we try before we pry. Try the door. If it can open, it can't. We've told it's jammed. Go through the rear door. We have got a rear door. Try and open it. If it can open it, then go straight and hold the neck of the casualty, so that we ensure that it's stable enough.
Okay, sounds great. Let's let someone else. Delino has his hand up, wants to say something. Thanks for all that great insights. You covered a lot of stuff. Somebody else want to?
Yes, I'm in. Okay. The first thing that we have to do is the safety officer has to do size up on the accident. After the size up is done, then he'll give a command for the spill to be covered, and then safety first for the patient and the firefighters. Once the spill is done, then they have to do, while they are doing the perimeter cover up, they have to secure the perimeter. Once the perimeter is secured, and then they come with the tools, they stage the tools up. After the tools are staged, because they know the safety officer told the incident commander told them where to cut. Once the tools are secured, stability of the vehicle and the safety of the patient by the paramedic. The paramedic has to be in contact with the patient, so that the patient must be they must be able to be in contact with the patient with the medic. and then stability of the vehicle. Then after stability of the vehicle, once the vehicle is stable, glass management. Then after glass management, space creation. Then after space creation, then the stability of the patient or the patient. So once the patient is stabilized inside the vehicle by the paramedic, and then the paramedic will give us a command to start cutting the vehicle on how do they want the patient to be
Okay.
removed.
That I'm going to jump in, and you're doing you guys both. Obviously, you've been responding to Carjacks to MVAs. You covered. You really nailed all the the proper steps. What I want to go into for the next little bit is what to do when you don't have power tools, and we're focusing on the dismantling of the car. So what you guys all said was great, and I'll try not to repeat any of those points that you've made without just as a quick review, because you really covered the approaches and stuff. So let's move on to the next. Thanks. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And I'm going to just talk real quick through a typical SOG that we have. By the way, we go back and forth in this country with using the term SOG, standard operating guidelines, versus standard operating procedures, SOP. I don't know if you guys use what term you all use. If you have a term for that, it's basically how do you respond things in a standard way. There's a debate here in our country, in the United States, whether you should use SOG or SOP, but it's all the same thing. It's your basic approach. So step number one, you secure the scene. One of the things that we put a big emphasis on here in North America is making yourself visible as possible. We have because of data that's been collected, we know that there's a real problem with drive-by injuries. People driving by an accident and rubbernecking, looking and watching, see what happens, and not paying attention, and then hitting a first responder or hitting a vehicle that's blocking and causing problems. So one is we put an emphasis on making yourself as visible as possible, whether that means wearing vests or whatever you have to do that with. That's number one, part of securing the scene. The second part of securing the scene is making sure you've blocked the oncoming traffic in an appropriate and safe way. I'm not going to go into a lot of details in traffic control, but you know the general concept. You have to block the oncoming traffic. You can't stop the flow of traffic on sometimes, because it could be on a major throughway, and if you block it up, then it affects businesses and all kinds of other things. So how do you make it safe? How do you block the road? Make it a safe scene for you. And of course, donning the appropriate PPE is always important, and appropriate PPE for responding to a motor vehicle is whatever is your standard issue. Should include helmets, should include gloves, should include hard shoes, should include eye protection as standard stuff. So when you approach the vehicle, we here teach that you approach on a 45-degree angle, because you never know if the car is not chocked, blocked, and might still be operating. You don't want to be in front of it if it lurches forward towards you. So if you're at an angle, you're in a better position to get out of the way. There's a mechanism in new cars that affects the stopping and starting. I'm not going to go into the details about that, but it's so that's why we block we go in a 45-degree angle. And as you're approaching the vehicle, you want to check for hazards above and below. By that I mean, are there things above you that could be a problem? Branches, wires coming down. Car hits a telephone pole. Are there wires going to come down that are electric? And as you approach, you look for hazards below. You spotted the fuel, things like that. That's good. So that's all part of your initial approach. We just have this problem. I don't know if you all are you're starting to notice this, or there's a data collection for this, but the frequency of firefighters and first responders and tow truck drivers and police officers getting hit by drive-bys going, who are working on the scene is really high. It's become a real problem that we're, working hard to address. So the third step is stabilizing the vehicle. And we do that with either chocks and or releasing tire pressure. Chocks, of course, are blocks that you put underneath the car to stabilize it or put in front of the wheels to stabilize it. If you release the tire pressure, say you take a sharp object, recommend that you hit the upper half of the tire so that the tool, as the tire lets out, the tool doesn't get stuck under the weight of the weight coming down on it. At this point, if you haven't gotten into to get to the battery, then you want to turn on the hazard lights if possible to make so that everyone knows for sure that the battery is still charged. And if the battery is charged, it means that the word just slipped out of my mind. The airbags are potentially dangerous. They can still release. So the newer the cars, the more the airbags, the more danger to you as a first responder. Make sure everybody knows that that's a problem. You get inside. You want to put the car in park, and this is why we access from the driver's side, so we can get to things if we can, so we can get to things like putting the car in park. We want to take the keys out and we want to put them on top of the car or someplace that's easily that they'll be easily found in case we need to move the car for some reason. And then we have the hazard lights on, as already mentioned. Now we're going to try and release the hood from the inside if we can. The hood opens, great. We disconnect the battery. We either disconnect the cables or we cut the cables. If you cut the cables, you want to make 2 cuts in them so that they're far enough so that they can't accidentally reconnect with the batteries. Whether you cut cables or you disconnect cables depends on how much damage you think there is to the car and or how old or new the car is. If you have a brand new Mercedes, you might not want to cut the cables because that's going to be a much more complicated problem in the repair than if you just disconnect them. So you have to look at that and make a decision based on the damage and situation. I don't know if you all still or have ever used these steering wheel covers that in order to kind of, in theory, to protect you from if the airbag has not deployed in the steering wheel. But we don't use those here anymore because we found that they're not safe. They're not strong enough really to withstand the explosion of the airbag, and then you start having pieces of metal or other things. So we don't use those. We have a rule that says that it's basically you want to stay 25 centimeters from the steering wheel when you go inside the front of the car, the driver's side of the car, to avoid the impact. To get accessing the patient, can you go through the door? I mean, Mike said right from the beginning, try before you pry. Firefighters, we're always forgetting that we need to do that. We all we don't want to bust the doors open, pull out the tools, rip things open. But yeah, try before you pry. Is the door locked? Can you unlock it? Can you get to a side that you can use one of the power if it's a power door, can you unlock it that way? Can you safely remove a window to get inside? And if you do that, you have to protect the patient. So you make sure that you cover them with a blanket or whatever else you have on your apparatus or available to you. When you want to pop a window, I don't know if you all carry these tools that they're window popping tools. It's basically, it's a punch, a spring-loaded punch, and you just punch it, put it up next to the window and press in, and it pops, and it causes the side windows to break away into small little pieces. If you have one of those power tools, those power punches, you could use that, or you can just wrap the corner of the window with a pointed tool, whatever you have available. I'm going to show you a video of a cool way of doing that. It's very simple with a Halogen bar if you have one of those handy. And of course, you clear away all the shards. New cars, I think from 2022 on, now the side windows are laminated like the windshield. And you know that windshields are much more difficult to break out. You can't just pop them out, you have to cut them out. But all new cars, the side windows are going to be like that too. So it's going to be much more difficult to access them. And of course, use the power switch whenever you have that option. So these are the 6 basic broad steps and with the details. So we'll talk a little bit about the safety, scene safety. We think in terms of an inner circle, or we call it a first zone, usually 3 to 5 meters around each vehicle. In this area, with each vehicle that's involved, you keep clear of anybody not directly involved. So no firefighter standing around watching, only the ones who are doing the work, and your tool staging area should border this. In your outer circle, 15 to 30 meters around each of the vehicle, you keep clear all non-rescuers. And this is where you stage your tools, and it's also where you're going to place your parts that you dump outside of this circle. By the way, when you take parts off the car, you should put them the good side, the outside of the car side down. You put the inside of car side down and it's got an airbag inside of it that hasn't deployed, and it accidentally deploys, then it's going to shoot the door or the part up into the sky, depending again how new or old the car is. So this is just a visual of what I just described, kind of shows you what it looks like, plus the apparatus blocking. And notice how the apparatus are on an angle. That it's on an angle because of when somebody plows into it, and it happens way more often than we would like to sort of admit or like to see happen. It's not going to push the vehicle in towards the where the accident's working. So you got to get into the battery, and if you can't get the hood, the cable to work, here's some techniques. I'm going to show you a video. This just one of the techniques. It's how you do it. One way to do it. Starts off a little slow.
Hello, everybody. I'm Travis Calhoun, firefighter with Bremerton Fire Department. Today, we're going to talk about how to extinguish in different ways and scenarios to put out a car fire if it's an engine compartment. So in the videos that we've been seeing when we've been training and going through YouTube and whatnot, a lot of people like to go right at this and open up the grill to get to the little wires for the locking mechanism for the hood by doing a spin, which is great in a scenario like this where the car is not on fire. But if it's smoky and you can't see the wires, you're just taking a shot in the dark, hoping that you get lucky. And also you're putting yourself either by being bent down or on a knee right in front of the bumper. And we all know that we need to stay at a 45 if at all possible. So then the bumper doesn't go flying at us. Another thing that we've been seeing is people like to show videos of taking out the headlights. We've tried that a few times. It doesn't seem to get much water into the engine compartment, especially if it's deep seated in the back here. So what we'll do first is I'll show a quick, easy way of getting the initial attack down on the engine compartment. And then thereafter, we can, after we've gotten the fire mainly knocked down, we can show you how to open up the hood for overhaul. So the best way I've seen, and in my experience, is it's called rolling the hood. So you just take part of your Halogen, smack it down, and you can just reach down with your shoulder, lift up on it, and we'll make a nice open area where it lifts up the whole dash, and that will give the person on the nozzle a nice, easy way to shoot in water on top of all the engine compartment where they can get all the deep-seated spots. And then thereafter, we can open up the hood. So again, you just find a spot about 6 to 8 inches up from the corner. You're still at a 45-degree angle, so you're in a safe spot. Reach down. Too far. From here, you can see you can get pretty much anywhere you want to inside the vehicle with the nozzle. Now that we got the fire knocked down pretty good, now we can work on getting the actual hood popped open, so then we can work on overhauling. So first thing you always want to do is the old try before you pry. Come over here, find the hood latch, and for this training scenario, we'll say it doesn't work. So that doesn't work. We go to the next one where we can do the down in here, try and find where the wire's at. Another run here. In. That worked there. Put that up. Go on about the business of putting it out.
Okay, so that's one method for getting to the forcing the hood and also attacking a fire in a car. So let's talk about. So let me ask the question about whether you don't have the right tools, and actually whatever tools you have are the right tools that you have to use. So try to avoid the mindset of, oh, I don't have the right tool for the job that needs to be done. If the job needs to be done, you have to figure out what tool you have can do it. So one of the things I want to talk about is I want to get into this whole, like, I don't have power tools. What do I do? So you got the door is jammed. You have to get it open. How do you get it off? And that's what the next video is going to show you. But basically it's 3 steps, and it's like a blinding glimpse of the obvious. You create a gap between the door panel and the side panel. You expose the bolts and hold the door in place, and then you loosen and remove them. But in order to do that, you've got to have a ratchet in your pocket or available. So let's watch this quick this quick video here. All right. So again, it's about using the tools that you have. I don't know what you carry on your apparatus, what you carry in your pockets, but if you have a pry bar on one of your trucks, ratchet set, vice grip, any of these sorts of things, they're the kind of tools you could use to open that up. All he did was pry the door between the door and the panel and the door, and to expose the bolts to remove them. Pretty straightforward. We just did that one. So looking at the clock, I want to run through, I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures of just ordinary tools that you could use. Now look, the newer the car, the harder it's going to be to get parts off, with just hand tools. For example, an older vehicle, you might be able to use a hacksaw to saw through across one of the beams on the posts, one of the posts to get access to, if you have to remove the roof. But if you don't have a saw, you don't have a power saw, you don't have a or something that a cutter, and you have to find another way to get the person out of the car. So here's a bunch of tools. Now I'll go back and I think we'll show another video at the end, depending on the time. Vice grips. How many of you are carrying vice grips in your pockets, or you have them on your truck? They're really useful tools. So vice grip can it could open up to expose nuts, bolts. It could peel back siding so that you can get to lock mechanisms. Pry bars. Old tools. This one with the point could also be used for easily for popping a window out. You don't have a pry bar? How about just taking an old lawnmower blade? They're real stiff. They work really well for prying purposes. Prying could be for prying open a door. It can also be used for prying the vehicle up in order to get lock chocks underneath it if you have to lift it up to get to somebody who's underneath. Carjacks. Cars have carjacks because they have flat tires. Carjacks can be used to lift the car in order to just if you need to raise it up to get somebody out from underneath, raise it up, stabilize it. Carjack can also be used to if you have to roll, do a dashboard roll, which is when you push the dashboard up and off the a victim who is trapped underneath. So carjacks, they're everywhere. Tow trucks. In the old days here, tow trucks were very useful tools. For one, they can lift a vehicle up. They can pull apart a door, pull parts up, pull parts off. So tow trucks could be a tool there if you don't have power tools available to you, but you have a tow truck available. Also related to tow trucks are body shop operators. Body shop operators often have tools that you could use that could be really useful, like torches, blow torches, so that you could cut metals and so forth. Halogen bars. I don't know if you carry these standard on your apparatus, but here halogen bars are standard operating tools, all kinds of practical uses for prying purposes, for forcing things, and with the point, you could easily pop a window out. And I'll go back and I'll show you a quick video that shows you how it's done. It's an amazingly fast way to pop side windows out. Slim Jims. I don't know if you have these. Probably somebody's got one. People who steal cars tend to have them. So you could slide it in the door to unlock doors. Again, it's a hand tool, useful to have around when you don't have power tools. Various hand saws for cutting the windshield. It's really hard to cut windshields by hand, but you can with a big tooth saw. If you score the windshield first with the back of your halogen bar, you use the fork part and you basically chop, 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 chop. That makes it a little easier to cut. Come-alongs, useful tools. Come-alongs are basically portable winches. Again, it could be used to move a car, but it can also be used to raise a car to lift it up or to pry open a jammed door. Again, just thinking about what tools you could use if you don't have the power tools. Also want to talk about cribbing. You got to have cribbing. This step cribbing is super useful to jam underneath the car as you're getting it stabilized. And because it's stepped like this, you can move it in further and further as needed. As you raise the car, you push it in, raise the car, push it in. They're easy to make. That's basically a 2x8, and you just cut them and you nail them together. Cribbing. You should have a lot of cribbing on your apparatus. Cribbing is basically 4x4s. They're really useful for stabilizing and for chocking the vehicle. And the more you have, the better off, because when you need them and you don't have them, you're going to really wish you have them. And it's just a matter of cutting blocks of wood about 4x4 by 2 feet is really all that is. So there's just a bunch of hand tools you could use to expedite an extrication of a patient when you don't have power tools handy, or if your power tools are out of service, or they're engaged in dealing with another call. So let's take a quick look at this see, is this the video I want to show you? Let me see. I have two more videos. I already showed you that one. Let me show you this one here. A real easy technique for breaking the windows.
Today I'm going to show you guys how to actually gain access into a vehicle, assuming that the pigeon's not located in the same compartment or the same window that you're going through. It's going to actually work in the side windows. It's going to replace using a center punch, window punch. I can go in with a flathead pickaxe and use only to fill in many attempts. The Halogen bar. Winches in the door. To the door and the actual flap. There you have it. Easy as that. A lot safer than actually sitting there striking forever, putting your patient or your victims in the seats at risk. A lot less brutal. Just swing of just.
So another tool, and hopefully you have something like this on your trucks or available to you. Really easy for getting into there, to somebody that way. Again, my focus, what I wanted to focus on was just the use of these hand tools where you might otherwise use power tools, and not to really go through all the steps for full, an extrication sort of like training specific, but just really talking about the different kinds of tools you could use for that you might have to use when you're doing an extrication and you don't have those power tools, or they're not working, or they're just not up, for whatever reason. So wrapping up here, I want to include. So Jose started with words of encouragement. I want to start with sort of kind of words of encouragement, and put these 5 principles out here under the heading of our goal. I hope that yours is like mine, is to always strive towards excellence, and towards that end, we need to have solid SOPs or SOGs to work from. We need our leadership at every level. Leadership is not a top-down phenomenon. It's leadership is, everyone from the new recruit, the new firefighter, to the most experienced senior one plays a role in leadership. We want to train to a razor's edge. We want to train, and because, as you'll see, we don't arise to the occasions, we fall back on our training. We need to be disciplined when we do this. You can't have everybody running in and saying, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We need to know what we're going to do. We need to be disciplined when we do it. We need to stand back if that's our role. And in the process, we also need to have good, effective communications. Communications is always a bugaboo. I don't know about it is for you guys, but every incident we ever had, when we do a debriefing, the thing that always comes up is our communications weren't very good. But if you don't train and if you don't improve and work on communications, they're not going to get better. But good, effective communications are critical, because without them, nobody knows what's going on. I'm just curious, and you can answer in the chat, or you don't even have to answer. You could just answer it to yourself. When was the last time your fire brigade did an MVA drill? And how often do you do them? And how comfortable and confident do you feel with the tools that you have for dealing with the kinds of motor vehicle accidents that you see? And at the same time, the other question is, how often do you practice or drill with the other fire brigades that you might be called in to support? I know that in Kenya, there's some really wicked bad accidents. We took that road down to the into the Great Rift, and there was evidence all along the road of horrible accidents. So, and then there's the bumper to bumper traffic that creates all kinds of other scenarios that are accident MVA related. So when was the last time your fire brigade did an MVA drill? And so as the clock is running out, I want to finish with what I always like to finish with, which is this quote I heard from, I took from a retired Vermont state trooper named Kurt Wackenbach. It always sticks with me because I think it's really important. We don't rise to the occasions. We fall back on our training. Training is critical. Training means to review and go over. It also means to learn new things and practice them, practice them, practice them. That is the key. So on that note, I'm running out of time. I see there are some questions. Can windows be popped with a broken spark plug? Well, that's an interesting question. Yes, I would guess they can if it's got a point on it. But you know what? The best way to know for sure is try it out. Take a spark plug, an old spark plug, and on a car that you're practicing extrication drills, see if it works. That's the only way to find out. So I'm gonna stop there, and I'll just leave. I think I'll close my screen out, stop sharing, and invite you to ask questions in the last couple of minutes, and then we'll go from there. So thank you for listening to me. I always feel challenged to present these in a way that I hope is useful. And I know there's a wide range of skills from amongst the attendees. So I hope that those of you with a lot of experience picked up something. And I hope that folks who are new to the whole fire service also found some useful information for yourselves. So on that note, I'll turn it back to Leah and invite any questions that people might have.
Yes, thank you.
Hold on a second. Let me just say, Adelino said, practice makes perfect. I want to correct that if you don't mind. Practice just makes us better. Perfect there is no perfect. There's just doing the right job the best we can. But practice makes us better and better, and that's what our goal is. So sorry for pushing back on that old expression, but perfection is not the goal. It's efficiency, it's quality, it's ability is the goal. Thanks.
Thank you, Howard. And thank you all for attending this training today. Howard, I always love when you present, and just your expertise really shows. So thank you very much. And I just want to invite everyone to stay for tea time that we're about to have. Our fire safety advocate, Jose, is going to be hosting that for you today. And just a little reminder that I will be sending out certificates later. And so please, you can edit your name now and I will still see it. And so you will have the correct name on your certificate. So just a reminder to do that, as well as invite your friends and your colleagues to come next week and just to share these videos online as well. But have a great week, and I will hand it over to Jose and stop the recording.